The first spark. In the vast, silent expanse of the galaxy, countless species thrived, each with its own history, culture, and understanding of the universe. The Galactic Council, a governing body formed to maintain peace and cooperation, had existed for millennia, navigating the delicate balance between these diverse civilizations. War was rare, a relic of a less civilized era, or so they thought. On the outer edges of the galaxy, a conflict began to brew between two ancient races, the Virith and the Kuroth. The Virith were a proud, warrior-like species, their culture steeped in honor and combat. The Kuroth, in contrast, were a species of scholars and scientists, their society driven by logic and the pursuit of knowledge. For centuries, the two species had coexisted peacefully, their differences respected and even celebrated. But tensions had been simmering for decades over a dispute regarding a planet both species claimed as their own. The planet, Xylos, was a jewel in the cosmos, rich in resources and possessing an ecosystem capable of supporting life. It was a rare find in the galaxy. Both the Virith and Kuroth had sent colonists at Xylos, and for a time they had shared the planet peacefully. However, as each species expanded their settlements, disputes over territory became increasingly heated. The Galactic Council attempted to mediate, but neither side was willing to compromise. The situation reached a boiling point when a Virith outpost was attacked, allegedly by Kuroth forces. The Virith, seeing this as an unforgivable act of aggression, demanded retribution. The Kuroth denied involvement, claiming the attack was the work of rogue elements not under their control. But the Virith were unconvinced. The incident became the catalyst for war. As both sides mobilized their forces, the rest of the galaxy watched with growing concern. The Virith were known for their formidable military, but the Kuroth, while not as battle-hardened, had advanced technology that could turn the tide of any conflict. The potential for widespread devastation was immense. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions, desperately seeking a way to prevent the conflict from escalating further. It was during one of these sessions that a representative from the Eleuthari, a wise and ancient species known for their foresight, made a grave suggestion. "We must involve the humans," the Eleuthari said, their voice resonating through the council chamber. A hush fell over the assembly. The mention of humans in any galactic conflict was enough to send shivers down the spines of even the most hardened diplomats. Humans were a relatively new addition to the galactic community. They had only been part of the council for a few centuries, yet their reputation had quickly spread. Unlike most species, humans had a unique adaptability and a relentless will to survive. They were known for their unpredictable nature in conflict and their ability to turn the tide in the most hopeless situations. But with that came a price. Involving humans in any dispute often meant the conflict would escalate beyond control, the outcome unpredictable and often devastating. "Please, don't drag humans into this conflict," a representative from the Telva, a peaceful and diplomatic species, pleaded. "Their involvement could lead to consequences none of us can foresee. We must find another way." The Eleuthari, however, remained steadfast. The Virith and Kuroth are on the brink of annihilating each other, and potentially us all. The humans may be the only ones capable of preventing this. We must consider all options. The debate raged on, but in the end, the Council agreed to send a delegation to Earth, hoping that the mere presence of humans might be enough to deter the warring factions. The delegation was composed of diplomats from various species, each chosen for their experience in dealing with humanity. As the delegation prepared to leave, whispers spread throughout the galaxy. Species across the stars speculated on what would happen next. Some believed the humans would bring peace, while others feared they would only add fuel to the fire. But one thing was certain: whatever the humans decided to do, the galaxy would never be the same. The human response. The delegation arrived on Earth, a planet as diverse and unpredictable as its inhabitants. Earth had changed significantly since it first joined the Galactic Council. Cities sprawled across continents, and technology had advanced to levels that even some older species marveled at. Yet, despite their technological prowess, humans remained an enigma to the galaxy. Their ability to oscillate between compassion and destruction made them both revered and feared. The delegation was received by the United Earth Government, UAG, the centralized authority that represented humanity in galactic affairs. The UAG was housed in a massive complex in New Geneva, a city that symbolized the unity and resilience of the human race. The delegation, led by Ambassador Luther, a seasoned diplomat known for his pragmatic approach, was ushered into a grand hall where the UAG Council awaited them. Ambassador Luther was a tall, imposing figure, his grey hair a testament to his years of service. He had dealt with numerous species and conflicts during his tenure, but the gravity of the current situation was not lost on him. The Verith-Pruoth conflict had the potential to engulf the entire galaxy in war, and the UAG had to tread carefully. The leader of the Galactic Council delegation, a Telver named Aris, addressed the UAG Council. "We come with a heavy request," Aris began, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. "The conflict between the Verith and Pruoth has escalated beyond what we can manage. The Council believes that your involvement could prevent further bloodshed." Luther listened intently, his expression unreadable. The room was filled with tension as the delegation awaited his response. After a moment of silence, he spoke. "Humanity has always sought to be a force for stability within the galaxy," Luther began. "But we are also aware of the consequences that can arise when we are drawn into conflicts not of our making. Our history is a testament to the fact that once humans are involved, the situation can escalate rapidly." Aris nodded, acknowledging the truth in Luther's words. "We understand the risks, Ambassador, but we are running out of options. The Verith are preparing for full-scale war, and the Pruoth are mobilizing their fleets. If this conflict continues, it could spiral into something far worse." Luther leaned back in his chair, considering the situation. The UEG Council members exchanged glances, their faces etched with concern. Humanity had come a long way since their early days of interstellar exploration, but the memories of past wars still lingered. The prospect of being dragged into another galactic conflict was not one they took lightly. "We need time to deliberate," Luther finally said. "This is not a decision we can make hastily. The stakes are too high, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy." The delegation agreed, and the UAG Council convened a closed session to discuss the matter further. For hours, they debated the implications of getting involved. Some argued that humanity had a responsibility to act, to prevent a war that could devastate the galaxy. Others warned of the dangers of escalation, citing the unpredictable nature of human involvement in conflicts. As the debate raged on, a message was sent to the Sol Defense Fleet, the UDG's primary military force. The fleet was instructed to prepare for a potential deployment, but to remain on standby until a decision was made. The weight of the galaxy's expectations rested on the shoulders of the UAG Council, and they knew that whatever choice they made, it would have far-reaching consequences. Meanwhile, the Verith and Pruoth continued to amass their forces on the fringes of Xylos. Skirmishes broke out between their fleets, each side testing the other's defenses. The tension was palpable, and it seemed only a matter of time before full-scale war erupted. Back on Earth, the UAG Council reached a decision. Ambassador Luther emerged from the closed session, his expression grim. He addressed the delegation, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of the decision. "Humanity will intervene," Luther announced, causing a ripple of reactions among the delegates. "But we will do so on our terms. We will not be drawn into a conflict blindly. We will offer our assistance as mediators, but if either side refuses our terms, we will withdraw. The choice will be theirs." The delegation was relieved, though they knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The UE's decision was a calculated one, designed to minimize the risks while maximizing their chances of bringing the conflict to a peaceful resolution. As preparations were made for the UEG's intervention, the galaxy held its breath. The Virith and Kroth were informed of humanity's decision, and both sides responded with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. They had heard stories of human resilience and unpredictability, but now they would see it firsthand. In the days that followed, a UEG task force was assembled, composed of diplomats, military strategists, and representatives from various Earth nations. They would travel to silos to oversee the negotiations and, if necessary, enforce the terms of peace. The galaxy watched with bated breath as humanity prepared to step into the fray. The edge of war. The UEG task force arrived in that silo system, where the tension was palpable. Both the Virith and Kroth fleets had established blockades around the planet, their warships bristling with weaponry. The task force's arrival was met with suspicion, but neither side made any overtly hostile moves. The UEG's flagship, the Argus, took position between the two fleets, a powerful symbol of humanity's intention to mediate, not to dominate. Ambassador Luther, leading the task force, quickly established contact with both the Virith and Kroth commanders. His first task was to arrange a ceasefire, something both sides reluctantly agreed to. The Virith commander, General Kravik, was a towering figure, his presence as imposing as his reputation. His deep-set eyes gleamed with the fire of a seasoned warrior who had seen countless battles. Humans, Kravik rumbled during their first holo meeting, I hope you realize the gravity of your position. The Virith do not take kindly to outsiders meddling in our affairs. We agreed to your presence out of respect for the Galactic Council. But know this, if you side with the Kroth, we will not hesitate to engage. On the other side, the Kroth High Chancellor Vela, a calculating and sharp-witted leader, was no less forthright. We trust in your reputation as neutral mediators, Vela stated, her voice calm, but with an underlying edge. However, should the negotiations fail, and you find yourselves in opposition to us, the Kroth will not show mercy. We have come too far to let our claims be undermined. Luther understood the tightrope he was walking. The next few days were spent in intense negotiations, with both sides presenting their cases. The Virith argued that Silos was rightfully theirs by conquest. Their ancestors had discovered the planet first and had fought hard to tame its hostile environment. The Kroth, on the other hand, presented evidence of their early settlements, long before the Virith had set foot on the planet. They also claimed that their contributions to Silo's development far outweighed those of the Virith. Amidst these discussions, the UEG team worked tirelessly, analyzing data, cross-referencing historical records, and trying to find common ground. It became clear that the situation was far more complicated than it first appeared. Ancient grudges, cultural pride, and the strategic value of Silos all played into the conflict. Every concession by one side was met with an equally stubborn demand by the other. As the days wore on, it became apparent that the negotiations were stalling. The ceasefire was tenuous at best, with both the Virith and Kroth fleets remaining on high alert. Skirmishes broke out in space, small clashes that threatened to spiral into full-blown battles. The pressure on Luther and his team intensified as the galaxy watched and waited for a resolution. Then, an unexpected development occurred. A small Kroth reconnaissance ship was caught attempting to infiltrate Virith-controlled space on Xylos. The Virith seized the vessel, and the Kroth demanded its immediate return, claiming it was merely gathering data on the planet's ecosystem. The Virith, however, saw it as an act of espionage, a blatant violation of the ceasefire. General Kravik, enraged by what he perceived as Kroth treachery, called for immediate retaliation. He ordered his fleet to prepare for an all-out assault, despite Luther's desperate attempts to mediate. The situation was spiraling out of control, and the Virith were on the brink of launching a devastating attack. Realizing that diplomacy alone would not be enough to prevent war, Luther made a bold decision. He ordered the Argus to position itself directly between the Wirith and Croth fleets, effectively placing the UEG task force in the line of fire. The move stunned both sides. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath, uncertain of what would happen next. "General Kravik," Luther said, his voice calm but firm as he addressed the Wirith commander via hololink. "I urge you to reconsider your actions. If you attack now, you will not only be declaring war on the Croth, but on humanity as well. We do not seek to fight, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The general's eyes narrowed, his fists clenching. "You would dare stand in our way? You, who know nothing of our history, our sacrifices?" Luther met his gaze without flinching. "I understand more than you think, General. Humanity has its own history of conflict, of sacrifice. But we have also learned the cost of war, and we will do everything in our power to prevent it from consuming the galaxy." For a tense moment, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Then, with a growl of frustration, Kravik relented. "Very well, human. I will stay my hand for now. But know this, my patience has limits." The immediate crisis was averted, but Luther knew that the situation was far from resolved. The incident with the Croth ship had only deepened the mistrust between the two sides, and the possibility of war loomed larger than ever. The UEG task force redoubled its efforts, working around the clock to find a solution that would satisfy both parties. As negotiations continued, Luther received a disturbing report. A third party, previously unnoticed, was stirring the pot behind the scenes. A shadowy organization known as the HFY Consortium, made up of mercenaries and arms dealers, had been secretly supplying both the Wirith and Croth with advanced weaponry, profiting from the escalating conflict. Their ultimate goal was to ignite a war that would keep the galaxy in chaos, allowing them to expand their influence and control. This revelation sent shockwaves through the UEG team. The HFY Consortium had long been a thorn in the side of the Galactic Council, but their involvement in the Wirith-Croth conflict added a new layer of complexity to the situation. Luther knew that exposing the consortium's role could shift the balance, but it also posed significant risks. The consortium was known for its ruthlessness, and they would not take kindly to being exposed. Luther convened an emergency meeting with his team. "We need to bring this information to the Galactic Council," he said. "But we must be careful. If we move too quickly, the consortium could retaliate, and the situation could spiral out of control. We need to gather more evidence and present it in a way that will force the Council to take action." The team agreed, and they began covertly investigating the consortium's operations. They tracked arms shipments, intercepted communications, and slowly pieced together the web of corruption that was fueling the conflict. It was a dangerous game, and they knew they were walking a fine line between diplomacy and subterfuge. Meanwhile, tensions between the Wirith and Croth continued to simmer. The ceasefire held, but just barely. Both sides were growing increasingly restless, and the threat of war hung over the galaxy like a dark cloud. The turning point. The UEG's investigation into the HFY Consortium reached a critical juncture. Evidence pointed to high-ranking officials within both the Wirith and Croth governments who were secretly collaborating with the consortium. The findings were damning. It wasn't just about territorial disputes or historical claims. It was about power, profit, and the manipulation of entire civilizations. Ambassador Luther faced a difficult decision. Exposing the consortium and its collaborators would likely destabilize the fragile peace that had been maintained so far. On the other hand, allowing the consortium to continue their operations unchallenged would almost certainly lead to war, with catastrophic consequences for the entire galaxy. After much deliberation, Luther decided to bring the evidence to the Galactic Council. But he knew that simply presenting the facts wouldn't be enough. The Wirith and Croth had to be convinced that they were being manipulated, that their war was not about honor or justice, but about greed and exploitation. Luther called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council, with both the Virith and Kroth representatives in attendance. The council chamber was filled with a tense silence as Luther began his presentation. He laid out the evidence meticulously, showing the connections between the HFY Consortium and the armed shipments, the communications between the consortium and rogue elements within the Virith and Kroth governments, and the secret deals that had been struck to ensure the conflict continued. The reaction was immediate and intense. The Virith and Kroth representatives were outraged, both at the revelation of the consortium's manipulation and at the betrayal by their own people. Accusations flew across the chamber, and for a moment, it seemed as though the council session would descend into chaos. But Luther remained calm, urging both sides to see the bigger picture. "This war is not about your history, your honor, or your people," he said, his voice resonating through the chamber. "It is about power and control, and you have been used as pawns in a game that only benefits those who profit from your destruction. The consortium has pitted you against each other, feeding your fears and your anger, all for their gain." The Virith and Kroth representatives were silent, the weight of Luther's words sinking in. Slowly, the realization dawned on them that they had been manipulated, that their grievances, however legitimate, had been exploited for the benefit of others. The Galactic Council, too, was shaken by the revelations. The HFY Consortium had long been a thorn in their side, but the extent of their influence and their willingness to foment war on such a scale was shocking even to the most seasoned diplomats. After a tense deliberation, the Council voted to take immediate action against the consortium. A task force was assembled to dismantle their operations, arrest their leaders, and confiscate their assets. The Virith and Kroth were offered the chance to cooperate in the operation, a move that would not only bring justice to those who had wronged them, but also provide a path to reconciliation between the two species. The decision was a turning point. The Virith and Kroth, both recognizing the opportunity to put an end to the cycle of violence, agreed to work together. It was a fragile alliance, built on mutual distrust, but also on a shared desire to see the consortium brought to justice. As the operation against the consortium got underway, the galaxy watched with bated breath. The Virith and Kroth fleets, once poised to annihilate each other, now worked side by side, coordinating strikes against the consortium's strongholds. The UEG, too, played a crucial role, using their intelligence and resources to support the mission. The battles were fierce, but the consortium, caught off guard by the sudden unity of their enemies, quickly found themselves outmatched. One by one, their bases were destroyed, their ships captured, and their leaders arrested. The shadowy organization that had once seemed untouchable was brought to its knees. With the consortium defeated, the Virith and Kroth were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered trust. The negotiations that followed were difficult, but without the consortium's meddling, a new understanding began to emerge. Both sides recognized the need to move beyond their old grudges, to forge a new path that would allow them to coexist on Xylos. In the end, a historic agreement was reached. Xylos would become a jointly governed world, a symbol of cooperation rather than conflict. The Virith and Kroth would share the planet, with each species contributing to its development and prosperity. The Galactic Council, impressed by the outcome, pledged its support to ensure that the peace would endure. Ambassador Luther and his team, having successfully navigated one of the most dangerous diplomatic crises in recent history, returned to Earth as heroes. But Luther, ever the realist, knew that the galaxy's peace was fragile, always one step away from chaos. He remained vigilant, ready for the next challenge that would inevitably arise. The aftermath and the legacy. The defeat of the HFY Consortium and the subsequent peace agreement between the Virith and Kroth sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The successful mediation by humanity earned the United Earth government a new level of respect and influence within the Galactic Council. The intervention had not only prevented a devastating war, but had also exposed the dangers of unchecked power and the manipulation of conflicts for profit. The jointly governed world of silos became a beacon of hope, a living testament to what could be achieved when ancient enemies chose cooperation over conflict. The Virith and Kroth, once bitter rivals, now worked together to build a new future for their shared home. The process was not without its challenges. Old wounds took time to heal, and mistrust lingered. But with each passing year, the bonds between the two species grew stronger. The UAG continued to play a crucial role in maintaining the peace, providing advisors, resources, and support to ensure that the fragile alliance held. The lessons learned from the Xylos conflict were incorporated into the UAG's diplomatic strategies, making humanity a key player in mediating other disputes across the galaxy. Ambassador Luther's role in the Xylos negotiations became legendary. His calm demeanor, strategic thinking, and unwavering commitment to peace were studied in diplomatic academies across the galaxy. Luther himself, though hailed as a hero, remained humble, always quick to credit his team and the cooperation of the Virith and Kroth for the success of the mission. The Galactic Council, having seen the devastation that could be wrought by shadowy organizations like the Italian Consortium, took steps to increase transparency and oversight within its ranks. New regulations were introduced to monitor arms dealers, prevent the exploitation of conflicts, and ensure that no single entity could manipulate galactic affairs to such a degree again. But the story of Xylos was not just one of diplomacy and politics. It was a story of resilience, of the power of dialogue over destruction, and of the potential for even the most bitter enemies to find common ground. It was a reminder that peace was always possible, even in the darkest of times, and that humanity, with all its flaws and complexities, could play a vital role in shaping a better future for the galaxy. As the years passed, Xylos flourished. The planet, once a symbol of conflict, became a hub of innovation, trade, and cultural exchange. The Virith and Kroth, having learned to set aside their differences, found new ways to collaborate, blending their unique strengths to create something greater than the sum of their parts. And humanity, having proved its worth as a mediator and peacekeeper, continued to build its legacy among the stars. The events of Xylos became a part of that legacy, a chapter in the ongoing story of a species that, despite its turbulent past, was determined to forge a path of peace and cooperation in a galaxy that often seemed intent on tearing itself apart. The phrase, "Please, don't drag humans into this conflict," took on a new meaning in the aftermath of Xylos. No longer a warning, it became a recognition of humanity's ability to turn the tide of war into a chance for peace, to step into the fray not as conquerors or aggressors, but as mediators determined to build a better future for all. And so the legacy of Xylos endured, a testament to what could be achieved when humanity was dragged into a conflict, not to destroy, but to heal, to mediate, and to bring hope to a galaxy in need.